What's going on, guys? It's Glen West here with Go247, senior writer at the site. Just wanted to hop on. I know we haven't done one of these in a little while, obviously with some of the changes going on with the site. So definitely wanted to hop on and just riff for about 15 or 20 minutes about some of the latest developments over the last week. Obviously, LSU started fall camp, and it's been a pretty big recruiting heater weekend or week for the Tigers. So we just wanted to, kind of come on and give my thoughts on everything. And obviously, this is kind of the first time I'm doing one of these myself. So, if you guys want to leave comments and, please don't crucify me too much, but we're going to get going here pretty soon. We're going to have some more podcasts on in the near future, and obviously we're going to have Sonny on, and we'll have some really great stuff coming towards y'all for fall camp and whatnot. But I wanted to hop on today and just kind of get things kind of kicked off with obviously the big recruiting week for LSU. Obviously, it was huge for guys here in Baton Rouge, and LSU landing 3 new commits really in the last 7 days or so, with wide receiver Shelton Sampson, quarterback Ricky Collins, and most recently on Saturday, Zachary's Kylan Jackson, the safety, committed to the Tigers. Kind of gets the class really up into that top 5 range. I mean, they're right there at number 6 and kind of pulling within shouting distance of Georgia here for a top 5 class. And I think the 3 additions here locally was very unique. I mean, I just kind of wanted to start off by just giving my overall impressions of the additions, but just first of all, I mean, just having 3 Baton Rouge area kids kind of commit within the same week. Very unique kind of circumstances, obviously, how everything played out. I was at all 3 commitments, and Sampson, Collins, and Jackson were all at each other's various ceremonies and whatnot. And it was just a really interesting way of kind of adding to this class, obviously getting some local flavor in here. Really just, a great job of just, LSU putting the pressure on these guys and recruiting them for as long as they have. The recruiting efforts that they've placed on all these recruits has been really something special. Obviously, with Brian Kelly and the positional staff, the guys like Cortez Hankton's and Joe Sloan's and Kerry Cooks of the world in last week, but really this recruiting staff as well. I mean, Sherman Wilson, Jordan Arsema, Corey Phillips. These are names that some of you guys maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't, but the entire really recruiting staff at LSU has done a tremendous job and really kind of putting a unique stamp on this class and kind of how to get guys on board. And I think kind of you saw that a little bit with the social media outcry, the various Shelton stays or bring Shelton home, Kylan stays, that kind of thing. You saw that with the various hashtags that were kind of sent out over the last several weeks with these guys. And I think the tide really started to turn on some of those local recruits when that started happening. When LSU kind of sent out a lot of that public affection for those guys and wanting to get them on board and keeping them in the state. And so was very obviously interested and intrigued. That was a very unique thing to do. And then, for these guys, for Sampson, for Collins, for Jackson, for these guys all to commit kind of within the same week, it was just a really interesting kind of way of doing it. I don't think that was obviously the initial plan. If you go back several weeks, I don't know that was something that was in the cards. I think kind of once Sampson put out his date and once, Ricky decided to decommit from Purdue, I think kind of the stars started to align from there on just what the plans were going to be and kind of adding to this group. But I mean, just I guess kind of to start with Sampson, obviously the big kind of recruit, the big guy, five-star guy on the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings. I mean, not much not to like. I mean, this was a guy that LSU recruited hard for a very long time, somebody that they wanted in the building, wanted a part of this nucleus of this class, and you kind of had to have him. I mean, he was a guy that I felt like, if LSU was able to land, it would say a lot about kind of their recruiting efforts locally. I mean, you've heard it from numerous people, but, the Arch Mannings of the world, the Eli Holsteins of the world, the Jaden Osberries of the world, those were guys that were probably never coming to LSU, just for various different reasons. But to get the guys that LSU thought they had a chance with, I think was huge. And obviously we've got kind of another one here coming up in a couple days with Kai Preen, the athlete, the receiver slash defensive back from St. James. He's making his commitment here in the next couple days as well on August 16th. So obviously that would be another huge addition to this kind of local, kind of charge here that LSU's been on. So we'll see what happens with him. But, kind of getting back to last week's, efforts. I mean, I think, Sampson was obviously a great way to kick things off. Obviously, he's a big-bodied receiver, 6'3", physical. He's can, jump with the best of them. I think he's probably got a very high ceiling and a very, kind of high floor too in terms of the production he's going to give you. I think if you are able to bring in a guy like that, get him in a weight program for a few months, you could obviously see him contribute as a true freshman. I think he's got that kind of ability, and it's going to be a real asset to this LSU offense for years to come. So really good pickup there. Obviously, Ricky Collins is the quarterback of the group. I mean, he had a huge kind of ordeal over at his with his ceremony over at Mason's Grill. Drove over to that on Tuesday or Wednesday, I believe. I can't remember exactly, but that was obviously another really big time addition. I kind of always went back and forth on whether or not LSU really needed a quarterback in this class. I think me and several others were kind of the position where you have two really good young options here in the room already. Did you really need kind of a third guy to come in here and be another young quarterback? And I initially I was a little bit kind of on the fence about it, especially if you weren't able to grab one of the guys that you were really targeting, but they were able to. Obviously Collins was a Purdue commit for a while, but really starting back in June, I think when he was on campus and when LSU had a really good chance to see him up close and personal, this new staff had a chance to really evaluate him and get to know him a little bit. I think that was obviously played a huge factor in everything. And he kind of talked about it with us. He really felt like, in the last several weeks, really after the Elite 11, where he was able to go out there and compete with a number of the top quarterbacks in the country, that he felt like LSU could be a possibility for him. And so obviously LSU made that push the last several weeks, and they got the outcome that they wanted. And I think, kind of landing a top 10, top 11, 12 quarterback in this class, wherever you really have Collins pegged, it allows you to really bring him along slowly. I think that's going to be kind of the big takeaway I have is you're not going to need him to come in next year and be your starter. You've got Nussmeier, you've got Walker Howard, two very talented young options here that I think are going to be great quarterbacks in their own right for this program. And not only does Collins kind of give you insurance on the kind of the disaster situation that one of them transfers, one of those other two guys transfers, but you also get a chance to bring Ricky along slowly. I mean, he's got a lot of traits that are really great for college football these days. He's mobile. He's got a cannon of an arm. He's got a really strong arm. But it's just about, I think, there's going to be some development there that needs to happen. And I think that gives you now the time, if you're LSU, to really, sit down with him and develop him as a quarterback over the next several years. So another really great pickup. And then obviously, Jackson, Kylan Jackson, the safety out of Zachary on Saturday, was a really nice pickup. I thought, the LSU kind of came in on him late. It sounded like he, that was a late push for LSU. And I think to kind of make that late push and still be able to land a talented safety like that. I mean, he's a top 10 safety in this class, hands down. Very tall. I mean, he's about 6'1", almost 200 pounds already as a, kind of entering his senior year. Very, very big addition for LSU to be able to land him. And I thought, it was just a really kind of great way to cap off this kind of local Baton Rouge recruiting efforts that LSU's really put in. I mean, you add those three to the mix. Obviously, you've got Caleb Jackson, the running back. You've got Trey Holly, the running back. But Tyree Adams, the offensive tackle. that's a great kind of start to your nucleus here as an LSU Louisiana class. And so I think you could absolutely see kind of a shift here. I think LSU is still going to be pursuing a lot of Louisiana players. Obviously, we touched on Preen a little bit, but offensive tackle Allen's Hurd is a guy who has said in recent interviews he's going to be ready to shut things down pretty soon, I think. And obviously, LSU is going to be right in the mix with him as well. That would be a huge, huge addition for LSU to kind of add that O lineman to their future and kind of build kind of really build this thing up locally with him, with obviously his former teammate Will Campbell, who's going to be the starting left tackle this year at LSU, and Adams and a number of these kind of guys they brought in over the last several years. So really exciting kind of last week for the recruiting trail. You kind of see some action, I think, before senior seasons, but for LSU to land 3 guys this close to the regular season, now it's just going to be about moving forward and getting some of these guys in that are uncommitted for games. You want to get obviously your commits in for games as well. You really got to put that pressure and continue to recruit those guys, because other schools are going to be coming for late flips and stuff like that come the early signing period. So it's going to be important LSU gets these guys in for games. They've got a good chunk of their freshman class built out. Obviously, with the lifted recruiting restrictions, you're no longer limited to just 25 guys. So LSU, as it stands right now, has about 20. There's some national guys that they're touching on. They're trying to get, and it'll be very interesting to see just kind of how all that plays out. So those were just some of my thoughts on the recruiting stuff that's happened the last several days. Definitely want to touch on the last week in terms of the full fall practice. So LSU obviously had a really great, kind of, they allowed it in the media end to watch a full practice last week. And obviously, you watch one full practice and, your head starts to spin a little bit about the potential combinations, the potential matchups you could see week 1 and against Florida State. And obviously, we won't bury the lead. We'll start with the quarterbacks there. I mean, I thought, look, with no Garrett Nussmeier out there, I think there's still a real competition here for the starting job. And Nussmeier is a big part of that. But with no Garrett Nussmeier out there for really the first full practice, it's kind of an incomplete grade in terms of just where I think this quarterback battle is. Obviously, everybody knows by now Jaden Daniels got the majority of the first team snaps in that full practice, whether it be 7-on-7, 11-on-11, just everything. He got probably a good portion of them. Miles Brennan certainly subbed in a little bit with the ones. He had a couple opportunities there, but really it was Jaden Daniels' show, and I thought he played very well. I thought he showed himself to be really well handling those additional snaps with Nussmeier out of the practice. And obviously, with Daniels, you're going to get the mobility. I think that's probably the biggest X factor in all of this in terms of the decision that Brian Kelly and Mike Denbrock and this offensive staff have to make is that, mobility that Jaden Daniels has is just going to be such a needed asset, I think, for this offense. And so, I thought he looked a lot better in terms of his short and intermediate throwing. He hit Kyron Lacey for a couple of really good passes up in the middle of the field, about 15, 20-yard gains. He was reading through his progressions well. I thought he made some really nice decisions. He had a couple balls sail on him a little bit, especially when the field got a little bit wetter. It started raining a little bit kind of in the middle of the practice, and certainly towards the end of the practice as well. So can't really blame him for that. I think that was even something that Coach Kelly brought up in his press conference afterwards was, we got to blame the ball boys there for not getting the ball dried off for him. And, look, that's obviously something that you're going to have to live with in terms of just game, situations. If it rains, it never rains in Death Valley, but who knows? It might rain in Auburn. It might rain in Florida a little bit later this year. So who knows? I think, look, Daniels handled himself very well. He's obviously got a very a very bright future. He's extremely athletic, and I thought he made some really, really good plays. Kind of the one area that I thought maybe he didn't play as well in, or did the one period he didn't have as great of a showing in, was the red zone period that LSU went through, kind of towards the middle end of practice. The offense really struggled to punch it in the end zone there with 11 on 11 stuff. But again, he wasn't really getting out and using his legs in that period either. And I think when you get into the red zone, it's going to be very important for LSU, if they're not able to hit their first, second, third read, to have a guy that's able to scramble and make plays in the red zone. And I think Daniels obviously offers you all that. And so him being able to use his legs in the red zone is going to be a really big part of this offense, I think, as well. Just some other observations on the quarterbacks. I thought Miles, obviously everybody knows about has probably seen the video of him connecting with Brian Thomas on that really deep kind of go route there. That was a really nice pass from him. There was some various media guys out there who obviously were out there with me, and were reporting. Obviously he wasn't going through his progressions as quickly as he needed to. I kind of tend to push back on that a little bit, just because I thought, in some of the periods, I thought he really did show that ability to read through and kind of settle. I mean, he was kind of settling for a lot of check down throws, and they weren't really pushing the ball downfield with him. But again, he was working with second and third teamers mostly, and so I do think that if he were to get some more first team reps, you might see a little bit of a different, more aggression in there. But I think a lot of it kind of had to do with the personnel out there. Particularly in those 11 on 11s. He was getting pressured pretty quickly there. I think the depth of the O line certainly has a great ways to go. I thought Miles, he played well. He didn't do really a whole lot to assert himself in terms of just kind of jaw-dropping plays and whatnot. But thought he had a nice day out there, and certainly was more than capable of earning some more reps. So we'll see. Obviously, they've had a couple practices here that we haven't been allowed to go to, so we'll get a chance to hop in with those guys on Monday, and on Wednesday, we're going to get another full practice. So we'll get hopefully a real good chance of seeing Garrett Nussmeier and Jaden Daniels. It certainly feels like it's those two right there in terms of the quarterback battle. Just some other takeaways. I thought, the offensive line is obviously going to be a big thing to watch. And I thought those guys, especially the first team, were able to handle themselves pretty well against LSU's, front four that's, being lauded as one of the best probably in all the country. And so I thought that was very promising. It didn't look like Daniels was being pressured a whole ton. I thought that, Will Campbell had some really nice moments. Obviously, he's going to be your starting left tackle. I thought Garrett Dellinger, the center, has really shown some great strides in terms of just learning that position and getting a little bit more comfortable with that. I think kind of the one thing that Coach Kelly said kind of after the practice was, there was one snap there with the ball that was wet, and he kind of blamed that on the managers, and so can't really get on Dellinger for everything. I think he's going to be a really great player for LSU, and it certainly looks like LSU is comfortable with him being kind of their starting center. And so we'll see obviously on Wednesday if those rotations stick, if they're moving with anything else, if they're going any other directions. I thought Anthony Bradford at right tackle really early on in the fall was a good sign that this staff feels like he's ready to fulfill his potential, and he really hadn't stepped out of that right tackle spot since. And so that's a really positive, I think, sign for LSU to have kind of him ready for more of a starter's role and ready to contribute and be one of the better O-linemen on this roster. So that was pretty much my O-line takeaway. I thought, receiver-wise, Malik Neighbors had a big day. I think Malik Neighbors is in for a huge season, for LSU. I think he's got a a really great future here. Obviously, he showed some really great flashes at the end of last year, but just his cutting. I mean, the way he cuts on his routes and his speed. They're going to move him obviously in the middle of the field. They're going to use him on the outside. I think he's going to be one of the breakout players really in the conference this year. If LSU finds the right quarterback and they're able to get the guys, the ball in space, I think he's going to get open a lot, and they're going to put him in precarious and in very good situations for him to get open a lot, and he's going to be a great complement, I think, for Kayshawn on the other side. And so I'm really bullish on this passing offense and it having a really, really great season. I do think that probably the one thing I wasn't able to look at a whole lot, I was kind of focusing on the offense a lot, and Sonny was focusing on the defense. But, offensively, the tight ends, they had a high volume of throws, whether it was Brennan that was in there or Daniels, Nick Storrs and Mason Taylor, the freshmen, both had some really good moments, and I thought were able to catch well, and they kind of were the check down options in terms of just LSU kind of going through their progressions, the quarterbacks going through their progressions and dumping it off to the tight ends. But they made the plays. They didn't bobble it. They caught it. They got a couple yards. And, look, I don't think you're asking the tight ends this year to be huge parts of your offense. I think you just need them to be able to contribute in the blocking game from a blocking perspective. I think Storrs absolutely does that for you if he can stay healthy. Mason Taylor, I feel like can get it done in the pass catching game a little bit as well. So, Taylor's a guy that Kelly even said after that practice, he's going to play. He's going to help contribute for us, and I think that's a really, really great sign of some of these kind of surprise players that LSU has found in the early parts of fall camp. So those were just kind of some of my offensive takeaways. We're going to, like I said, we're going to have Sonny on probably early next week. And, we've obviously got some exciting news in terms of a new addition to the group where we're going to announce that on Monday. And, I think you guys are going to like what this guy brings. It's going to be very, very fun, very loose. We're going to bring some really great content for you guys. And I think we're all really, really, really excited about it. And, can't wait to really kind of dive into the season and get us started here. But, again, if you guys, I appreciate any comments, feedback, whatever you guys have for me. I know this was, I rambled for about 23 minutes here, but, if you guys have any, criticisms for me, I'm a sponge. I'll take all of it. And, I'm certainly trying to learn my way through all this as well in terms of being more comfortable with podcasting and everything. I think it's something I've been doing for a little bit now, and I think I'm getting better at. But any suggestions, any comments you guys have, I'm all for. So with that being said, we'll certainly be in touch very soon. And thank you guys for listening. And we'll certainly have a lot more for you in the next several days. So for the Go 247 podcast, I'm Glen West, and we'll check you out. We'll check you guys out later. All right, thanks.